Wow. Absolutely wow. This chapter of Fairy Tail. Before I get into the review, the level of disappointment I feel for this Fairy Tail chapter knows no bounds. This was supposed to be chapter 500 with 499 like Hiro did last time with the Igneel stuff, where some really crazy and epic stuff was going down, ultimately leading into something huge. That's why I had my doubts that Hiro Mashima was gonna pull a Hiro Mashima and ultimately mess everything up. I was like, no, maybe, you know, this is really gonna be something big, and from what I heard, he did something like this in Raid Master, so maybe he's gonna do the same thing. I had hopes. I was keeping a shred of hope. At this particular point, from here on out, I am no longer going to expect any character to ever die up until that very last chapter. I don't care what. Their body could disintegrate into nothing but a puddle of mud, and I'm not going to expect that they're dead until the very last chapter finally ends, and then we see. Other than that, no more. He couldn't keep Juvia dead for a singular chapter. Like, honestly, if you only read Fairy Tail, this is the only manga you read, or the anime is the only anime that you watch, I want to strongly urge you to check out other anime and manga, because I guarantee you will find something that you will enjoy and will be a lot better than the shit that we go through with this. I mean, you want to hear some series off the top of my head? Seven Deadly Sins, Tokyo Ghoul, Magi, Hero Academia, all these series, you can go check them out, and you're gonna be pleasantly surprised, because if you're only reading and watching this, you're doing yourself a disservice as a consumer of entertainment. So from the beginning, Brandish was continuing on, which, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of bits to this chapter that were decent. It's just that whole lot of bitch that was, because Brandish is pretty much like, okay, you know, I really don't want to fight you guys, I'm gonna let you guys survive, but she keeps intact her pride of being from the Alvarez Empire, and says, you know, I'm still gonna get your people, like, I'm gonna let you guys survive, but I'm still gonna keep going. So I'm like, good stuff, you know, still being a villain. She didn't have that complete 180 change of heart shit, so I'm like, okay, that's pretty dope. And then the setup with Demaria hearing that, so there's probably gonna be a battle with them. I don't know how much of a battle they could possibly have, because Demaria can stop time, so I don't know what Brandish will be able to do. Maybe she can make Demaria so small that even if she stops time, it's not going to really affect her. That could possibly be, but you could definitely see that it was a setup for Demaria and Brandish to have a go. And if the info gets out from either Nineheart, which we don't even know what happened to Nineheart after the end of this chapter, but either Nineheart or Demaria tell anybody in the Alvarez and the word spreads, Brandish is going to have no choice but to stay with Fairy Tail, because she will be branded 100% a traitor. So if that info leaks out, Brandish is screwed. Then you see that all of the Fairy Tail members and everybody that's on the Fairy Tail side, you know, the Fiora side, are getting owned by the Spriggans. I'm like, okay, you know, the Spriggans are putting in work. Good stuff there as well. Now the Gray versus Invel fight. It's epic. I'm not gonna lie. Gray pounding on him, but you gotta think, yet again, it always goes back to the beginning of how hyped up the Alvarez Empire were, and the Spriggan 12 of how amazing they are. And you gotta think that you would assume with these credible powers, these capabilities, that the Spriggan 12 were gonna be absolutely unstoppable, to the point where it will take 2 or 3 Fairy Tail members or some crazy, you know, awakenings or powers or whatever to take them down. And Gray on his own, granted, he is going absolutely mental over what happened to Juvia, but Gray on his own is beating the tar out of Invel, and he did use some strategic stuff to there, so I can't completely bash the Gray versus Invel stuff. I think it was cool, and ultimately it added to the emotion and suspense that we had left off of how Gray was going to react to the Juvia stuff, which obviously we knew he was going to go crazy and, you know, demolish this dude. So I can't completely go, hey, you know, that was terrible, because he did take some of Invel's power as well, like we've seen he's capable of doing, and ultimately he beat the snot out of this dude. So it was like, okay, you know, whatever. At the end of the day, Gray did have some sort of power up in the sense of using his magic against him. I ain't gonna lie though, Invel's armor definitely reminded me of like Tatsumi from Akame ga Kill. I'm like, hey, what you doing here, bro? And even in the end, after Gray beat the crap out of him, I was like, wow, Gray's like, yo, this ain't gonna bring Juvia back, and he's there crying. He's like, no matter how much I beat the dog crap out of him, it ain't gonna change nothing. So I was like, oh, at least he understands that, like, killing this dude or whatever. So maturity on Gray's side as well. Now the whole stuff with Nineheart showing up looking for Lady Erza on behalf of Lady Eileen. It's kind of showcasing that Eileen was some sort of, or is some sort of royalty. Maybe she had her own kingdom. Maybe she was married to a king, and it goes back into the whole, what was the relation between Erza and Eileen? Could it possibly be a long lost daughter? Why is it that way back back when, Eileen was talking about, like, you know, you can kill her, get rid of her, or whatever. So 9 is looking for Erza to get rid of her. Probably, again, it has to do with, I'm assuming if that is indeed her daughter, probably the father. If that's not her daughter, if that's like her older sister, it has something to do probably with a third party that we don't know about. Maybe they are the reason why she feels the way she feels for Erza, because Erza was a little girl at that point when they were separated, you know, because the first time we see Erza, she's young as shit and she was into that orphanage and stuff like that. So it's safe to assume a third party messed things up and she had a great regret and ultimately began to hate Erza. And 9 was looking impressive because he got the power up from Eileen, and Brandish is like, I can't do nothing. What are we gonna do? Lo and behold, the ultimate plot came through, and Natsu with one punch came and saved the day. I was like, wow. This chapter was off to a decent start, and a one punch, and the dude is, you know, flying away, and Brandish was initially saying, oh my gosh, how can we do anything? And then Natsu comes with a punch, and I'm like, you Spriggan are absolutely pathetic. 9 like, you were pathetic. And once again, it's just like, hey, you know, a singular punch taking out one of these great baddies, these great villains that are supposed to really kick some butt, and Natsu does it with one punch. He should be bald and have a cape and call himself Saitama. But the ultimate insult to everything that we felt with last week's chapter, Julia healed. Wendy arrived at just the nick of time to heal Julia from her death. What was the point of building all that up only for the next chapter? You couldn't keep her dead for even an entire chapter. The very next chapter, and not even the end, she's healed up again. Wendy came to save the day. What was the point of 499? What was the reason to build up this emotion only to toss it out the window? This is exactly the Gajeel stuff. I saw a comment, and I gotta agree wholeheartedly. You were right on the money when you said last week that Julia was just about as dead as Gajeel, because it's ridiculous. Hiro Mashima yet again showcases that with Fairy Tail, he's not going to take risks. He's not going to get rid of characters that are fan favorites. He's just not going to do it. And we obviously at this point really need to accept it. I mean, every now and then I get a little loose. I'm like, you know, no, maybe Hiro might do something crazy, but we really need to just 100% establish nobody's dying in Fairy Tail up until maybe the end. Maybe, which that's shred of hope. Throw it out the window. That's what the old me would have said, maybe. No one's dying, and even if they do look like they're dead, they will be back at some given point. I would love to eat my words, but at this particular point, I know I'm not. I know I'm not, because we're in pretty much what seems to be the finale, the final fights. We have the main villains involved and everything, and people are still not even dying for a singular chapter. Absolutely terrible and disgusting. And shortly after... And I mean, even seeing the fact that she was revived, it kind of defeats everything that Gray felt when he was pounding on Envil and he's crying and feeling all this emotion. It's like, dude, don't worry. You know, Hiro Mashima won't kill her. I promise you. I wish I could have just whispered that in Gray's ear as he's pounding on Envil. It's like, Hiro won't do that, dog. You know, Hiro, come on. And we got a cool revelation at the end with Gray finally finding out about END being Natsu. I'm like, okay, that's good, but the amount of sandwiched bullshit in between this chapter was on astronomical levels. Vegeta's scouter was popped because of the bullshit level that was in this chapter. A couple of good bits that ultimately make it that this isn't a 1. The stuff at the end with Gray finally getting an advancement to find out that Natsu was END. But as soon as he finds out that Julia is still alive, is he gonna have that hatred? Or is it already unlocked at this particular point? Could that have been a plot device to ultimately unlock Gray's hatred even further for Natsu or END and say, you know what, we're going toe to toe and that's it. And the setup for the Demaria versus Brandish. But the one hit KO to 9 from Natsu, yet again disgusting. The Spriggans just look like scrubs, and then Julia being revived. Wow. So yeah, this chapter, at best, 2.5 to a 3 out of 10. And that's me being fair with the fact that there was some decent stuff around all the bullshit. So that's me being fair for it. But in all honesty, it's absolutely stupid as shit. The fact that she's already back, not even a chapter ago. What are you doing, Hiro? Why are you giving us false suspense? Why are you giving us these false feels about characters that are never gonna die? Let me know what you guys think about this chapter. Very controversial chapter. I know a lot of people are very heated about this. Are you happy that Julia's back? I mean, as a fan, it's like, cool. One of my faves are back and shit like that. But looking at it for what it is, just, what are you doing, Hiro? And your overall thoughts of the chapter? Do you think that Gray is still gonna go after Natsu no matter what, even if he finds out that Julia is okay, because he's gonna feel like no matter how much I go through, it's gonna continue because Natsu's alive? What do you think is gonna go down with Brandish and Demaria? And your overall thoughts on this chapter? Do you feel as though it was absolute horse bollocks? But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day, because I'm not feeling it right now, bro.